guys, welcome back to the Pantry Kitchen. I'm Catherine and today we are making my famous chocolate crinkle cookies. These were a holiday favorite this year. I've made them several years in a row now, but I just love, it's honestly like a cookie and a brownie, and it's like gooey and fudgy inside, but the outside gets like crispy, and then they're just so pretty with the icing sugar that makes the crackling effect on top. So the ingredients you'll need are very few. These are actually gluten-free as well. As long as you're using gluten-free baking powder, then you're good to go. So grab your ingredients and let's get started. 2 eggs at room temperature, 6 ounces or 180 grams of dark chocolate that's been melted, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 teaspoon of balsamic vinegar, along with a half a cup of granulated sugar, 1 cup of icing sugar that we're going to sift, a half a cup of cocoa powder. Along in this bowl, we've got 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 cup of white chocolate that's been chopped into small pieces. I'm just doing this recipe by hand today, so in a large mixing bowl, I'm going to do my granulated sugar along with my 2 eggs. And you'll notice this recipe has balsamic vinegar. When I first tried it, I thought that was strange as well. There's only a teaspoon and you don't really taste it. So I'm using a local one here that we have in Kingsville called Cindy's Olive Oil Company, and they make a really nice balsamic vinegar. So just going to whisk those together. I've already melted my dark chocolate, so have that ready to go because you don't want it to be super hot when you put it in, then you'll risk scrambling your eggs and you don't want that. So we're not looking for tons of air, but I just really want this to be thick and for all of it to be combined. All right, now goes in our vanilla extract. And you can measure this, but it's only a teaspoon, so I just eyeball it. And goes in a teaspoon of balsamic vinegar. And like I said, as long as you are using gluten-free baking powder, this recipe is awesome for if you have a family member or friend that maybe has celiac or is just gluten intolerant. This is a great treat to be able to make them, but they can still kind of indulge in all the regular goodies that everyone else can have. But this will definitely make them question whether or not it is gluten-free, but in fact it is. So in goes my melted chocolate. And you want to get all of that goodness out. Okay, because we don't want any lumps, we're going to make sure that we whisk in our cocoa powder and everything. All right, now that that's nice and thick, I said we don't want lumps. We're using a sifter, not a whisk. We will whisk them in, but in goes all our... This is set aside. Icing sugar is already in here. We are not going to sift that in also. There we go. Everything goes in. The icing sugar is for us to dip the cookies in after as well. And just in goes all those. You can press all the little bits. Once they go through the sifter, there won't be any lumps. All right, and now I'm just going to use my spatula and mix all of this together. And don't worry if you think it is too loose, it will thicken very quickly. So now that I've whisked, no, I didn't whisk. Now that I've mixed this just a bit here, and you can see that it's tightening up, I'm gonna go ahead and add in my white chocolate at this point, so it's not as hard to mix in. And just take your time mixing it all together. Just gonna need some elbow grease for this one, but I promise you it will be worth it. That's exactly why I do it by hand, so I can control and not over mix anything. All right, so now that that's good and mixed, you can see I'm having a little bit tougher time mixing, so you will too. It will get thicker, but that's what we're looking for. All right, so now we'll just set this aside and prepare our cookie sheet. All right, so now that we've got our cookie sheet here and a small ice cream scoop, what I'm going to do, this dough does need to chill a little bit before it goes into the oven. So I'm just gonna start scooping and placing them on my baking sheet. And it is going to firm up, so we will be able to roll them in the icing sugar once it cools down. So now that our cookies are scooped out, I made 12 cookies. I'm gonna pop them in the freezer just for them to set and chill a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and I'll show you the next step before we bake them. All right, so now that our cookies are chilled a bit, I'm just gonna bake half the batch. So we got 12 cookies. So I'm just gonna go ahead and on each one with the extra powdered sugar, this doesn't have to be sifted. It's just a little bit in a bowl. I'm going to totally coat each cookie. So like I said, I'm going to make 6 today. So I'm going to space them out on my sheet because these will spread. And then you'll see as they bake, they'll start to get that cool crackle effect. And really when we take them out, kind of hit the pan, that's when they're really going to show off all their cracks. So just take your time with each cookie. You want to make sure it's completely covered in icing sugar, or else it won't get as good of a crackle effect. All right, so now with my oven preheated to 350 degrees, I'm going to bake these for about 12 to 14 minutes. You'll notice when they start to spread, these won't really brown, so you won't really have that kind of sign that they're done baking. But in the 12 to 14 range, you just don't want them to look super gooey anymore. And you'll start noticing that about the 5-minute mark when they start to kind of melt and bake. So as long as there's no like super gooey bits on the top, then you're good to go. The rest of these I'm just going to pop in a Ziploc bag or a container, and then I'll pop them back in the freezer, and then whenever I want chocolate crinkle cookies, all you have to do is dip them in the icing sugar and then into the oven. So these are ready to bake, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. It's not you, then it's not anyone. All right, and this is what our chocolate crinkle cookies look like after they're done baked. Remember, you want to hit your sheet pan on the counter very gently, but with a little bit of force to influence that crack a little bit more. You'll see it when they come out of the oven, but by tapping it a little bit, you'll force the icing sugar to go into the cracks. So now it's time to taste. If you love brownies and the crispness of a cookie, you will love this cookie. It's super fudgy in the middle. Now come closer, let me see if you can see. You see in the little bits of white chocolate. And it's nice and soft. This, I guarantee, will become your favorite cookie. It's perfect. Nice chocolate treat, not too heavy, perfect to make for your sweetie or your best friend for Valentine's Day. So if you do make this video, be sure to send me a picture. I love to see what you create of mine. And don't forget, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned for another video. Bye guys, have a great day.
Or the sweetie.
Or the sweetie.
The sweetums.
The schnookums.